Good afternoon, all. I'm calling the Citizens Oversight Committee regular meeting to order for February 23rd, 2022, and welcome all. Mr. Martini, if we could have roll call, please.
Sure thing. So we'll start with Committee Member Byrne.
Present.
Committee Member Epstein. Committee Member Epstein, I believe, is not present yet. We'll go to Committee Member LaFond.
Present.
Committee Member Peters.
Present.
Committee Vice Chair Gorin.
Present.
And Committee Chair Wiscombe.
I'm here. Thank you. Thank you all. Okay, we're going to move on to general public comment. Any member of the public may address the Citizens Oversight Committee for up to 3 minutes on any subject within the jurisdiction of the committee that is not scheduled for public discussion before the committee. Do we have anyone that wishes to speak?
Chair Wiscombe, I am monitoring public comment and I do not see any hands raised at this time.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. Okay, and then we're going to move on to item number 4, which is approval of the minutes from the October 27th, 2021 meeting. That was on the website. Does anyone have any proposed changes to the minutes?
They all look good to me. I would move that we accept them if anybody else doesn't have changes.
Okay, do I hear a second to that?
I'll second that. Peters.
Okay, Mr. Peters seconds it. Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve the October 27th, 2021 minutes. And we'll have to do a roll call on that, please.
Okay, great, thank you. So the motion was made by, I believe it was Vice Chair Gorin, and then seconded by Committee Member Peters. Great,
Correct.
So the item is to approve the minutes from the October 27th, 2021 meeting. Committee Member Byrne.
Yes.
Committee Member LaFond.
Aye.
Committee Member Peters.
Yes.
Committee Vice Chair Gorin.
Yes.
And Committee Chair Wiscombe.
Yes.
Passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 5, which is nomination of a new committee chair and vice chair. I want to start by just saying thank you to you all. It's been an honor to be your chair for however long I've been your chair. And I've enjoyed my time on the committee. In consideration of nominating a new chair and vice chair, and the new chair will take over the meeting. I just also want to say that all of our terms expire in June of this year. And so I would hope that, excuse me, if you're nominated as chair, I hope your intention is to continue on the committee, reapply and continue on the committee if appointed by City Council. So that's all I have to say. So I'll take any nominations. Let's start with chair.
I'm sorry, Chair Wiscombe, if I
Yeah.
may, can I just add a few things just for a
Yes.
process for this, if I
Mhm.
may? Thank you very much. So I'm happy to help facilitate the committee's process with nominating a chair and a vice chair. We agendize this item to include the vice chair in the chance that the current vice chair might become the chair. I know Mr. Gorin is currently the vice chair, and he was just nominated and placed in that seat at the last
Right.
meeting. And so I just wanted to make sure it was clear as to why the agenda item was written as such, and that it allowed us to perform both if in case we need to for both the chair and the vice chair. And just a couple dates for all of the committee members for the upcoming process. I just want to confirm that is true. The end of June is when all of the committee members' terms expire. This is the first 4-year term after this committee was established. And so it's important that you're aware that the application period, if you would like to continue to serve on this committee, that application process begins on April 12th. There'll be information that staff will make sure that we provide to all of you. The application period ends on May 9th. So you'll have a couple of weeks to make a decision about whether or not you'd like to apply or not. And then there'll be the formal interview process with the city council that will occur after that. If you choose to not continue to serve on the committee, staff just asks that you go ahead and email the clerk no later than April 21st, if that is your decision to do so. So again, whoever is elected the chair and or the vice chair for right now will just be for the purpose of this meeting, because the next Measure C committee meeting is not going to occur until October, when there will be a new committee in place. Any questions on just sort of dates and process?
I do, Mr. Martini. Would you restate if a member was going to drop out? You mentioned a date in April. Would you repeat that, please?
Sure thing. So by April 21st, if a member is choosing to not apply or not continue to serve on the committee, staff just asks that you email the city clerk's office to inform them of your decision.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So we're just nominating to have a person be the chair for this one meeting? Am I getting that right?
But yes, committee member LaFawn, that is correct.
So
Okay, so I have a question.
why are we going through with it? It's only one meeting.
I have a question about it. I don't know, maybe this is wrong or not, but let's say that one of us intends to reapply and city council picks us to stay on this board, and that person was elected chair today, and then the city council reappoints that person. Would that person remain the chair then or do we have to have a new election for chair and vice chair in October?
So Vice Chair Gorin, if that situation were to occur, it really is up to the committee, if my understanding is correct, on how you would like to select your chair and vice chair. And so we could do similar to what we've done in the past, which I'm prepared to help you all with today, which is to each of you nominate someone and then do a roll call vote to determine who gets the most votes, and that selects your chair and vice chair. That's what we've done in the past with this committee. I'm happy to continue with that process, or if you have another sort of process you'd like to propose, we can see if that would work.
I agree with Mr. Gorin. I think my intent was that a chair and a vice chair gets elected annually at the first meeting, and I was hoping that whoever gets elected chair and vice chair at this meeting would then be able to also take the October 26, 2022 meeting, because they're the person that's going to have experience on the committee and how we operate. And then it gets recycled into the next year with a new chair and vice chair, or a continuance of a chair and vice chair, if that's okay, Mr. DiMartini.
Again, I think staff will take the direction of the chair and vice chair as to who you would like to be your chair and vice chair. So we will take your lead on that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so let's open up nominations for chair. Does anyone have a nomination for chair?
Well, for purposes of this, I would just like to say I don't intend to reapply.
Okay, well,
Burn.
we're looking for, okay, so
Well,
let's
that's
just
what
move
that's what was said, is that please indicate if you're not going to reapply. There's no point in nominating that person. So I'm just letting you know I do not intend to reapply. Thank you.
Okay, fine, thank you. I'm going to nominate Mr. Gorin for chair. I assume that you're going to reapply, Mr. Gorin, or maybe you haven't made up your mind yet.
Yeah, Chair Wiscombe, I intend to reapply.
Okay, that's okay. So I'll nominate Mr. Gorin for chair, unless Mr. Gorin has any objections.
I'm fine with it.
Okay.
Will you take
Okay.
a second on that, Chair Wiscombe?
I can, or I can take another nomination. It doesn't. Sometimes at Planning Commission, we usually nominate, we don't second, but that's okay. Are you going to second it?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, any other nominations for chair? Okay, I think I think we need a roll call vote, but
Yes, we can do a roll call vote.
okay.
Okay, so we have a nomination for the current Vice Chair Gorin and a second as well. So I'll do a roll call vote. Committee Member Byrne.
Aye.
Let's see, Committee Member LaFond.
Aye.
Committee Member Peters.
Aye.
Committee Vice Chair Gorin.
Yes.
And Committee Chair Wiscombe.
Yes.
Okay, so current Committee Vice Chair Gorin has now been selected as your chair. Congratulations to you, Mr. Gorin,
Thank you.
for 5-0.
And Mr. Gorin, I'm going to let you take over the meeting for the vice chair portion, if you don't mind. Is that okay?
Okay, that's great. Okay, so do we have nominations for a
Chair
new-
Gorin, I'd like to nominate Susan LaFond as vice chair.
Okay.
And I'll second that, since we're taking seconds.
Okay, and
Miss-
then
Is Ms.
I'll-
LaFond, I'm sorry, is Ms. LaFond agreeable to be the vice chair?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
Great. Okay, let's take a roll call vote. Oh, is there any other nominations? All right, hearing none, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote.
Chair Gorin, I do see that Committee Member Epstein has just joined us, and so I would recommend that we give him an opportunity if you would like to make a nomination, if you would like to.
I didn't just join, but I was just invited to join as a panelist. I've got to say the getting in on this Zoom and interfacing with it was bizarre, and I do Zoom all day, so there's something fundamentally wrong. I've been on the meeting almost from the beginning, but couldn't speak, couldn't do anything. I had my hand raised and somebody finally let me in. First of all, I'd like to add my vote to Chairman Gorin. I do not have any other nominations for vice chair.
Excellent. Okay, let's go ahead and take a roll call vote then for Ms. LaFond as vice chair.
Great. So we'll start with Committee Member Byrne.
Aye.
Committee Member Epstein.
Aye.
Committee Member LaFond.
I guess aye.
Committee Member Peters.
Aye.
Committee Member Wiscombe.
Aye.
Chair Gorin.
Yes.
That passes 6-0.
Chair Gorin, may I interject? Thinking that Steve Epstein wasn't on the call, I was going to nominate him for some role here just to surprise him.
What can
We
we
might
give
be out
Mr.
of-
Epstein?
Mr. Epstein might suggest we're out of roles.
Okay, I'll withdraw my recommendation.
Thank you, Mr. Peters.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to the reviewing the status of projects funded by Measure C. That's item number 6 on our agenda.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chair Gorin, members of the committee. My name is Keith Martini. I'm the city's finance director. And it is my pleasure to present, along with a number of staff that are here today, a very high-level overview of projects that are currently funded from the Measure C district sales tax. Next slide, please. The objective of today's meeting is just to receive a status of funding. And on this slide coming up here in just a moment, next slide, please. Shows just a quick page off of the city's main website of the Measure C funded projects and the URL, so that any member of the public, members of the committee can go ahead and see how the Measure C sales tax dollars are being put to work for a number of really great capital improvement projects throughout the city. Next slide, please. The agenda for today's presentation is to provide an overview of the funding allocations and the priorities from the initial ballot initiative, as well as the priorities communicated by the City Council during the first 5 years of implementation. I'll provide an overview of what the Measure C revenue outlook looks like, and then I'll turn it over to staff to provide an update on various projects. And then to confirm, the next scheduled meeting is scheduled for October 26, 2022. That will be the formal meeting where you will have received the annual accountability report, and we will ask you to review it, and we will gather your feedback on it and go from there. And then today we'll happy to take any questions that you might have or help with the discussion. Next slide, please. So this slide here summarizes. I'll wait for the slide to go to the next one. Here we go. Okay, so this slide here summarizes on the left-hand side the priorities that were articulated in the ballot measure itself back in 2017. Again, confirming for public safety, police and fire, local streets, fire stations and public safety infrastructure, parks, senior youth services, addressing homelessness, retaining local businesses, and supporting other general services. And then the column on the far right, soon after the ballot measure was passed by the voters, the City Council adopted a resolution articulating what should be the priorities for the first 5 years of implementation. And those priorities are listed here as well. And there's clearly a lot of overlap. There's a lot of synergy between the two lists. And we've done improvements over the years on the annual accountability report so that it is very clear for each individual project or program which priorities they are addressing. Next slide, please. This slide here shows a brief revenue outlook from the first 4 or so years of actual revenue coming in for Measure C, and what staff is currently projecting in the current fiscal year and a draft of next year as well. The first bit of revenue that came in started in fiscal year 18. That represents only about a quarter, maybe a little bit less of an annual amount of revenue. Right now, we see just over around $25 million annually from Measure C, Measure C revenue. This sales tax, like transient occupancy tax and like a number of other revenue sources in the city, were significantly impacted during COVID. There was a lot less just general economic activity. Retail patterns changed. Consumer patterns evolved from sort of fewer brick and mortar purchases moving to online retail, for example. So just the patterns and the types of purchases evolved. In Santa Barbara, we saw a huge uptick of online retail activity, as well as continued strength in auto sales and gasoline sales and other certain types of sales as well. But sales around sort of restaurant and other tourist-based activities did decline and had been in decline mode for months during COVID. That retail activity has pretty much rebounded to what they were pre-pandemic levels. But there still seems to be some delay on some extensions that many businesses were granted during COVID to be able to remit their sales tax remittances in a delayed way to the state, which then comes to us months after that. You're all aware of high inflation. We are definitely impacted by high inflation on the expenditure side. Purchasing materials and services is becoming more expensive. But there are some benefits to our operating budget because of high inflation, because the sale prices for things are higher. And so we do see an incremental increase in our sales tax because of that. And you can see here our projection in 2022 is the highest we've ever seen, and we expect it to continue to grow up and to grow incrementally into fiscal year 23 as well. Next slide, please. This slide summarizes the adopted budget for Measure C district sales tax money in the current fiscal year, broken out by the major programs that you'll see today from staff, broken out by streets, facilities, police, library, parks and recreation, and public works. As you can see, streets has historically and is programmed to continue to receive the largest share of Measure C revenue for street maintenance and other capital improvement projects. Next slide, please. So now what we'll do is we'll have a slide for each of the major priority areas for Measure C. And there will be a brief table on each of these slides listing all of the projects that are being funded by the Measure C district sales tax, as well as what the current fiscal year funding allocation is for each of these projects, and just a brief status as to whether or not the project is either in design, it might be in construction, or if it's been complete. And so staff will talk about each of these individually, and then we'll be happy to take questions from the committee after that. So I'll provide the first update on addressing homelessness. And there was a new project that was set up during fiscal year 22 in response to the Loma fire. That was a declaration of emergency that occurred. This was not a project that was originally budgeted in fiscal year 22, but it came about because of an emergency situation. This funding was used for the Safe Shelter program that was in effect from July 5th through January 31st, so just recently. 11 clients were permanently housed as a result of this effort, and 33 clients became document ready. CityNet continues to perform case management services for individuals that have not yet been permanently housed. SB Act continues to host meetings and address impacts from their perspective. And the city's encampment response team is continuing to address encampments through cleaning and enforcement efforts. Next slide, please. So now I'd like to turn it over to staff in Public Works and other divisions to go ahead and give these updates. Thank you.
Mr. DiMartini, are there any more slides with this, or should we just speak generally about our programs?
You can speak generally, Jim, if you'd like. There are a number of slides coming up for local streets, pothole repair, neighborhood fire stations, parks. So there's a number of additional slides coming up here. Okay.
So I'm Jim Dewey, the Streets Operations and Infrastructure Manager, and I'll just provide a quick overview of the streets funding that we've received and what we've been doing with that over the last at the beginning of this fiscal year, so a little bit more than 6 months. So far this fiscal year, we've repaved 112 city blocks using streets crews and contractors. The efficiency of our streets crew paving has really increased this year, so the cost of our paving efforts per city block has been reduced by 20% for their work, so we're really proud of that. Our pavement maintenance projects have included slurry sealing and crack sealing 74 city blocks of streets. We've installed more than 138,000 square feet of new sidewalk. We've also installed or refurbished 31 access ramps. Looking at our storm drains systems, we've completed the design of our Laguna Pump Station modernization project, which will go out to bid this spring. This project is primarily funded with FEMA grants and is supplemented with Measure C funding to help improve our storm drain systems. We continue to upgrade and renew our traffic signals, replace control cabinets, install battery backups, and renewing our intersections. And we're currently under construction with a highway safety improvement grant funded project at Carrillo and San Andreas intersections. So I'm sure many of you have seen that project, and it should make our streets a lot safer, especially at those pedestrian crossings. And now I'd like to invite Laura Yanez, our streets principal engineer, to highlight some of our current projects.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. Good afternoon, Chair Gorin and committee members. I will be providing you a brief overview of some of the key streets projects our team worked on in the first half of FY22. As you know, and Mr. Dewey mentioned, the pavement projects are our main priority and essential in in order to improve our pavement condition index, or PCI. At the beginning of FY22, our PCI was at a 63. And this fiscal year, we've completed, substantially completed the FY21 slurry seal project, which is just the capital work, and slurry sealed 67 city blocks, and will restripe Cabrillo Boulevard, Coast Village Road, Meigs Road, Milpa Street, and State Street. This work has yet to be entered into our system in order to update our PCI values. In the second half of the fiscal year, we expect to complete the FY21B overlay project, which kicked off last week. This project will grind and overlay 6 high priority streets, with including Arriaga, Castillo, Chapala, Micheltorena, Mission, and Fairview. One of our goals for this year is to make up the budget shortfalls of 2020. So our team is working on completing 2 sets of pavement maintenance contracts this year. Therefore, the FY22A pavement slurry seal project will be going out to bid this March, and the FY22B overlay project will be going out to bid in late April. Lastly, I'd like to highlight 2 major projects nearing construction completion. The first is the Las Positas multi-use path project. The multi-use path project included the construction of 2.6-mile long pathway for bicyclists and pedestrians along Modoc Road from Calle de los Amigos to Las Positas Road, and along Las Positas Road to from Modoc to Cliff Drive. Funding for the Las Positas and Modoc Roads multi-use path was provided by the California Active Transportation Program and through Measure C. The ribbon cutting ceremony is scheduled for next Thursday, March 3rd at 8:30 a.m. And I encourage you all to come out and celebrate with us the completion of this monumental project. Second is also a project that Mr. Dewey mentioned, the West Korea Lighting Project. This project was funded by the HSIP grant, or Highway Safety Improvement Program, and Measure C. It was identified as part of our city's annual collision analysis and located on the Carrillo Street Vision Zero priority corridor, where there are a high number of fatal and severe collisions. So this project includes countermeasures to address those collision patterns and provide accessibility improvements for all of the neighborhood, which there's a high concentration of pedestrians in this area, so it's a huge improvement. Construction completion is expected in May of this year. This concludes my project highlights, and I am available at the end of the presentation to speak on these projects and others on the slide now. Thank you.
Hello, Chair Gorin and members of the committee. My name is Angela Oslin. I am the facilities manager for the city of Santa Barbara. I'm going to talk about the next couple of slides briefly, and then I'll turn it over to Director Zachary to talk about parks projects, and then I will be back. So very quickly, we'll just talk about these neighborhood fire station projects. As you know, with COVID being an ever-changing pandemic, we've been able to complete 2 of these projects, and we're finalizing the minor renewal of Fire Station 3 here within the next couple of months as the Omicron variant declines, and we're able to finish the final remaining phases of that project. Next slide, please. Here you'll see a number of projects that are in various stages of completion. The upper level needs assessment for the for the Central Library is ongoing. It's currently in planning in the preliminary phases. The Central Library staff workspace renovation project has completed design, and along with the Central Library ADA elevator project and the Library Plaza renovation is slated for construction contract award by the end of March. Very exciting. And hopefully we're going to be breaking ground in July of this summer. Also, project completed at East Side Library security cameras. That was done very quickly in this last quarter. And it's an absolutely wonderful system that is fully functioning and provides much better security for our library. And with that, I'll turn it over to Ms. Zachary.
Good afternoon. Very quickly, we have a number of projects, and Parks and Recreation is a very diverse department with 60% of the general fund facilities for the city. As a result, there's always lots of work to do, particularly with our historic structures. Right now, we are working with Public Works facilities to complete the final design and hopefully be in a position to go out for construction bidding for minor renewal of the historic Carrillo Gym. Other projects that we're working on include the renovation of Dwight Murphy Field. City Council recently approved the final design contract with RRM. We're working closely with the Gwendolyn Strong Foundation to complete design development and construction documents within the year. The Louise Lowry Davis Center has been under construction for exterior improvements for the last year. Those are nearing completion. There's additional work to be done to replace the windows. And then we're also working on the scope to undertake the interior renovation in the new fiscal year. The other two projects on this slide, La Mesa Park restroom and the municipal tennis building, those are minor renewals to address accessibility and upgrades to the restroom and the clubhouse building. Next slide, please. Ortega Park renovation, another large park renovation project that we're currently engaged in. Similarly, initiated design development and construction documents with council approval in December of last year. That's advancing forward. The park restroom buildings minor renewal, those funds will be allocated to support interior renovations at Chase Palm Park. And the restroom that's adjacent to Casa Las Palmas be done in conjunction with a project that we are working on. It's in design and funded through the last bit of the former RDA money, installing a trellis within the Casa Las Palmas outdoor patio area. Playground replacement, we have a number of parks where we're using Measure C funds to supplement CDBG, Community Development Block Grant funds, to replace and repair playgrounds on both the east side and the west side. And then lastly, Plaza Del Mar, the band shell. The city, we began design work for renovations. The band shell is in very poor condition and is unusable in its current state. These funds will support construction. We are also working with the Park Foundation to secure grant funds for this project, as well as state parks to secure grant funds to advance this project to construction, hopefully in summer or fall of this calendar year. I think that's it for me.
Hello, Chair Gorman again. I'll go over a number of these projects. I'll save De La Guerra Plaza revitalization for the end of this slide and the next slide. And I will turn that over to Mr. Hess at that time. Currently, we're undergoing the RFP process and getting ready for advertisement for the 630 Garden building fire protection system upgrade, the 630 Garden security upgrade. And on the next slide, there's a companion minor renewal project at 630 Garden. So we will be pooling these projects for design, and that should be in process here in this next quarter. The ADA transition plan funds described here are going to be supporting some of those minor renovation efforts with respect to barrier removal, both at 630 Garden and at City Hall with the plumbing and restroom upgrade design. Here in the next quarter, we anticipate advertisement for construction of the plumbing and restroom upgrade project at City Hall. And then currently we're undergoing a facilities master plan project for the Ortega and the Laguna blocks, so this garden and Laguna blocks, and that is currently underway. We're in the preliminary stages of determining the facilities needs, and that shall continue on to the fall of this coming year. Next slide, please. I'll also save the Laguna pump station project for later on in this presentation. And then the parking lot annex yard lot replacement is currently in pre-construction, and the Public Works courtyard repaving project is slated to be completed this spring. And with that, I will turn it over to our remaining presenters.
Thank you, Ms. Osland. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go next, but I think I'll jump in and go next. Thank you, Chair Gorin and committee members. My name is Brad Hess. I'm the principal project manager for the city. And I'll be talking about two projects. One was on the previous slide. It's De La Guerra Plaza. And this project is still in concept phase. We've been working with the project's advisory committee for 27 months now and have been to the Historic Landmarks Commission 3 times. So we're close to having a concept design that will be ready to submit to the city's pre-application review team. We're hoping that happens fairly soon. But this is a really complicated project and obviously a very important one to the downtown area. So it's worth the time for sure. The second project I'll speak to is on the next slide. It's the police station project. Currently, this project is in CEQA environmental review, and the environmental document will be a mitigated negative declaration, or MND, and will be in draft form for review in late March. The schematic designs are completed, and design development drawings will commence after the CEQA process is completed. And that'll also happen with the new contract with the architect for phase 4. While it's very tough to estimate when construction will start, which is a consistent question that I get, we're aiming for the first quarter of 2024 for a construction start date and a construction complete date of mid-2026. So coming up, we will be updating the public in a community update webinar on March 7th, so a week from Monday. That will be specifically geared toward those within 1,000 feet of the project site to give them an update on the plans and what to anticipate during construction. So I'm also available at the end for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, staff that came to this presentation today. I really appreciate it. And I believe that concludes all of the staff updates. And so we'll go to the next slide, please. Again, just a reminder that the next scheduled meeting is October 26th. You can pencil it in on your calendar, committee members. I really appreciate that. Of course, we'll send out advanced notification of the Zoom instructions, or maybe we'll be meeting in person at that time, and provide the annual accountability report well in advance for your review. Next slide, please. And so with that, I'm available, and members of staff will be available as well if you have any particular questions or comments on any of the individual projects that were presented today. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Thanks a lot for your presentation. And I guess I have some questions and comments, but I'll wait till the end. And I don't see it on our agenda, but there's no members of the public in attendance here or had that have joined us. If any, do we take questions from public on any items that are presented here typically, or do we just move into our questions?
Chair Gorin, the public comment period has already passed. I do not believe you take any comments from members of the public on this particular agenda item, if I'm not mistaken. But I am monitoring public comment as well, and there are no members of the public that have their hand raised.
Okay, the reason I asked is because the public comment item on the agenda says specifically items that are not scheduled for discussion in front of the committee. And if, I guess, in theory, were there to have been a member of the public here that saw the presentation and wanted to comment, I guess, do we then take comments after the presentation before we move to our comments?
Yes, you can.
Okay, great. But there's nobody here, so it's a moot point. So I will go to members of the committee who have any questions or comments. Committee member Wiscombe looks like she has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, normally what I've done in the past is after the presentation and after the committee has asked questions to open it to public comment if anyone has any. Sometimes the public benefits from the questions that the committee asks. But we probably should have an insert in here to take public comments specifically on the presentation. So those are just my comments on that. I can kind of combine my questions and my comments if that's okay with you, just for time's sake.
Yeah, that's okay with me.
Okay, fine, thank you. I wanted to ask Mr. Dewey about the Laguna Pump Station design. I missed when that's coming, when that, I think he said it's going out to bid. Is that, there he is.
Yes, Committee Member Wiscombe. Also, thank you for serving as the chair for so long. That'll be coming out to bid this spring and will be under construction this summer. And what that will include, currently the Laguna Pump Station has natural gas driven engines that drive the pumps there. And what we're going to do in order to get better reliability is convert that whole system to an electric pumping system with a diesel generator. There's also a number of other improvements that we're making to that facility, as well as improving some of the drains around the Palm Avenue and Rose Avenue area, which is near the Laguna Street northbound off-ramp. So it's a critical facility for us because that facility has to remain online and working in order to keep the low-lying area around Gutierrez Street, East Gutierrez Street, from flooding. So a critical facility, and we are really fortunate to be able to get FEMA money in order to do that. But we did need to supplement some of the FEMA grant funds with Measure C funds in order to complete that.
Well, that's great. It's been a long time coming, and I know that's going to greatly improve things. So congratulations on looks like we're finally going to see the project. And I just wanted to, since you're taking comments too before I ask questions of other staff, I just wanted to comment on how impressed I was that you've reduced the costs of paving by 20%, and you've paved 112 city blocks. That's pretty amazing in this environment, and you're to be commended for that. I just think that's really outstanding. I assume most of that's done by pooling projects. Is that correct? You keep a contractor on that, works on one and then works on an adjacent one, or?
Yeah, actually, I was speaking specifically of the work that the streets paving crew is doing. And right now, they're really completing the majority of the paving work. And so as they've honed their skills and become more efficient, we've been able to better use our support services for grinding and sweeping, trucking services, save money on that. And the crews have been able to produce more paving that way. So it's really kind of a function of their increased efficiency working together as a team.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. I think that's really good news for the public to hear. It's when you get efficiencies like that, it's always important when you're spending public dollars. So that's really great. Thank you very much, Mr. Dewey. I had a question for Ms. Yanez. There was, when she got there, there was a slide that showed, I can tell you what slide now, it doesn't matter, but there was a slide that showed the MODOC multi-use path extension, which is in design. And there it goes. Okay, great. And I just, can you explain a little bit about that project? Because I'm not, is that an extension of the multi-use path project that has the March 3rd opening?
Yes. We began the Las Positas multi-use pathway project, and then subsequently the county received also an ATP grant to fund the county portion of the path. So the extension on MODOC and connecting to the Ubrin Trail.
Right.
So with that, there's a gap between that trail and their improvements, and then the newly constructed Las Positas multi-use path. So we are working together with the county to close the gap and have a continuous multi-use path from Goleta Beach all the way to Santa Barbara. So that's amazing.
That's really great, because I remember when we reviewed that project, there was this big gap, and then you had to get back on MODOC and travel on the road before you went on the bike path again. So this will close that loop, and you'll be able to go from Cliff Drive all the way over to Goleta Beach and UCSB on a bike path. That's wonderful news. That's great.
Yes.
Is there any timeline yet for putting this project out to bid?
Yeah, so this one's on a fast track. Since the county is going to construction soon, we don't want to wait too long. And so we are hoping to complete design this fall and be able to go to construction by the end of the year.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. That's really exciting news.
Yeah, thank you for asking about the project.
So, and Mr. Chair, my last comment is just goes back to what I said to Mr. Dewey. Is several other staff commented on it. This pooling of projects for design and for construction saves money, and it's clear that it's being done in both the design phase and the construction phase. There were several projects at 630 Garden. It looked like that were, coming together and would be combined. And so I think it's just, you are all doing a fantastic job of spending Measure C money appropriately and wisely. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Peters here, Chair Gorin, may I?
Please.
I don't know who to direct I think I have a comment more than a question. Perhaps Mr. Dewey. I'm in Santa Monica this week and downtown area, and one of the things my wife and I are enjoying are diagonal crosswalks. And when the walk light comes on, pedestrians can walk diagonally or left or right in any direction. And it seems like that would have some applicability to high pedestrian areas in Santa Barbara. Is there any, I'm plugging for a specific kind of roadway improvement here. Could I get a comment?
Sure, Committee Member Peters. That configuration is called a scramble.
Scramble, yes.
Yeah, and I've seen it effectively used in a lot of different areas. They use that in Carlsbad. It works pretty well. The problem is that when you have a busy intersection, that scramble mode takes a whole movement of itself. And so there, of course, can't have any traffic moving through the intersection during that time. So it's really a function of how much pedestrian traffic we have versus how much vehicular traffic we have. And, I have talked.
Well, let me interrupt with a specific thing. State Street at Cabrillo. When we have walk lights there, we have vehicles making right-hand turns at the same time too. So, this is a improvement in pedestrian safety, more so than conveniencing motorists. That would be my rebuttal to your comment.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah, this really is a question for our traffic engineer, Derek Bailey, and he could really speak to you specifically about that. So I would encourage you, we can have him reach out to you if you want to discuss that in more detail.
Well, could I? He'd probably reach out to me if you suggested that. Would you invite him to?
I will.
Reach out to me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dewey. Thank you, Chair Gorin.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
I have a few questions, and I'm not really sure if you guys will know the answers, but I'll try. I know, like we were talking about the tax revenues that are coming in, and like the auto and gas has kind of kept our revenues up. And I was wondering, excuse me, I have a cold, so like how much, like the gas tax in California is really high compared to other states. Do you know like about what we get per gallon or the percentage out of that we get? I think, you know, it's like, I think I read something that there's $1.18 in every gallon of gas that's taxed. So do we have any idea how much revenue we get out of that? Does that make sense?
The question makes sense. I don't know which staff is best equipped to answer that.
You know, this is Keith. That is a good question. There's a separate tax on gasoline sales. There's a gas tax that is accumulated by the state of California, then distributes funds to local jurisdictions for street improvement type projects. There's also sales tax as well on gasoline sales, which Measure C is a district sales tax. So we do get sales tax revenue from gasoline sales as well. I do not have at my fingertips the rate or the total annual amount of gas tax revenue that we get. I'm not sure if Jim or another staff member from Public Works might have that. I can try and look it up really quick.
Okay, so basically the state collects X amount of dollars in tax, and do you know if they distribute it evenly by, say, county, or is it by population density? And then just like, so Measure C, what like, I think we were adding, I don't know, like what 1% to our sales tax. So that would be in proportion to what we get on the gas. I hope I'm phrasing that right. Excuse me.
The total revenue that streets receives from the gas tax is not anywhere close to what we are investing with Measure C dollars. So,
Okay.
you know, I'd really like to, I can give you very specific information about what we receive, and it's basically from the revenues from the gas taxes in our region, and it's divided up accordingly by population, I believe.
Okay,
for our
population
region.
density.
Yeah, so, but I can give you some specifics. I do have some tables that have been worked up by the California League of Cities that has all of that information. And it can also give you kind of information on what other counties are receiving and what other cities are receiving too. So
Okay.
I could send those to you. Maybe that would be informative.
That would be interesting. And then just a couple other questions, like we've been, I guess it's the county that's, or is it the state that's been issuing like a grace period on the, I guess it's the property taxes. Is that grace period over, or is it still continuing?
Committee member LaFond, you know, I'm not up to speed on any grace period with property taxes. Property taxes are administered by the county, and so I'm not aware of a grace period process. But I will say that if there is one, it is not material as far as how much property tax revenue is coming to the city.
Okay, so that doesn't pertain to us, but what pertains is then when we get the money from the state, how long is the delay, like a quarter behind, or?
As far as gas tax revenues, or
No,
the sales tax revenue from Measure
yeah,
C?
like you said, it, they get it and then they divvy it up, and so is it like a quarter behind, 6 months, you know?
Yeah, great question. So there is a time delay as to when businesses will remit the sales tax dollars that they have collected from every individual transaction. They have to remit a sales tax return to the state of California, along with remitting the actual dollars. Then the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration, the CDTFA, administers sales tax distribution. So they take in the remittance, they deposit the money, and then they determine when to then pass it along to all of the entities that are due their sales tax revenue. That process could take anywhere from 3 to 6 months generally. But again, during COVID, there were quite a number of delays. Some delays from just businesses not being able to pay it, but others taking advantage of delays that are offered by the state on actually remitting sales tax dollars. So we are still catching up from delayed sales tax remittances. We are still seeing some impact of that. The magnitude of it, though, is unknown. We just know that there are some delays of returns going to the state.
Okay, so I don't know. And then I just wanted to ask another question here on the city net. I don't have, that was 2 million something. Was that pertaining to that the Rose Garden Inn, or was that a completely different like revenue stream that paid for that? Is that part of the Measure C money?
Yes, Committee Member LaFawn, that is correct. The just over $2 million that was appropriated for the CityNet encampment bridge housing. Most of that went to the Rose Garden Inn project. That's correct.
Okay. And then my last question was, just out of curiosity, where was the infill for the sidewalks on Hollister? Can you give me like a geographic visual on that? Hello?
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
sorry, I thought I lost you.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Okay, Committee Member LaFawn. Yes, this would be, it was located on both sides of Hollister, but primarily on the mountainside of Hollister, in the area of Fairview, running towards the west. And so it included the area that was by the old the old airport drive-in, and
okay.
you know, where we have the long-term parking now, and in that area it's permeable concrete, so it is permeable, and that meets our SWIMP requirement for that.
Okay, so that all that infill was more out by the airport technically.
Yeah, that there were several sections that of sidewalk that were just missing. So now someone can walk from Fairview Avenue over to a lot of that the airport commercial property located in the city of Santa
You're
Barbara.
breaking up a little bit, but okay. Well, anyway, and I was also going to say I am also duly impressed with the saving of the 20% cost reductions on the paving. That's fantastic. And I congratulate you for that. And I would like to also just say that I drive around town a lot and I see all these improvements that you're making. And I think you guys are doing a great job. So thank you very much. I'm done with my questions.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Peter's here again. Is it too late to pile on Ms. LaFawn's comments there about what a great job?
I think you just did, and that's great.
I too ride my bike around, and I am so pleased. My neighbors too. Have occasion to speak with them, and widespread enthusiasm for street roadway improvements. Thank you, Chair Gorin.
All right. Anybody else that we haven't heard from yet? Okay, so seeing no one else, I don't think I see anyone else here. I have just a couple questions and comments. So Mr. Hess, my question on the police station is just curious, who is preparing the mitigated negative declaration for that? Are we doing that in-house at the city, or did we hire an outside consultant for that?
Chair Gorin, we're doing that in-house in conjunction with several components that were done by DUDEC.
Okay, great. Next questions I have are for Ms. Osland. And So the accountability report, which we didn't go over here, but which you did provide to us, again, I'm really happy that we're including our checklist of the council established priorities on this. And as I was reviewing it, I was looking at these priorities on each project. And the first thing I noticed, well, I had a couple of questions that came up, but then when I saw the original priorities list on notice of elections, there is this priority for support other general services. And when I look at the priorities list on our the accountability report, that one's cut off. I don't know how it was missed, or if it's typo, or if it just didn't fit on the page, but our list on the accountability report ends at helping retain local business, and there should be that additional line item of support other general services. And the reason that this stuck out to me was there is 4 different projects in here which would squarely fit in that category, but which are, for whatever reason, they're allocated to different other categories that I'm not sure there's a nexus to. And I just wanted to go through those so we could get some clarification for the committee or anybody that looks back at this hearing later. So one of these is the facilities master plan. That's page 13. So this is the corporate yard and updating Laguna Yard and everything else. And it's allocated to police, fire, and 911 emergency response. And that doesn't make sense to me, because these facilities aren't really related to that, but they certainly would be supporting general services. So I don't know if there's a chance to update the report or how that gets handled, but is there a reason why we didn't have that in our priorities and put this project in that one?
Thank you, Chair Gorin. I will take a look at that and update the master plan document with some additional information, but primarily the corporate yard in both the particularly 630 Garden block and Laguna blocks specifically supports police and fire, both with radio support, electronic maintenance support, and then also with fleet support. So there are a number of direct support responses for those 2 entities. Additionally, the emergency generator is located for these 2 blocks is located at the 630 Garden block, and it allows us the ability to continue to operate and maintain in the case of an emergency. So master planning these 2 blocks in a way that allows us to continue to provide support services for police, fire, and so on and so forth, with public works support in the event of, let's say, a landslide or other, gives us that opportunity. Certainly, however, there are a number of other priorities that we can evaluate and add to that list.
Thanks. Yeah, I think that the city should get credit for all of the priorities that you're addressing with any of these projects. So this isn't a one checkbox mutually exclusive thing. The corporate yard out there off of, I forget what street that is, Yannon Alley, that we're storing like paving materials and things like that out there, and that's general services. And I think we should add that in there. And so like I just had I won't go through it on every single one, but like that city hall plumbing and restroom upgrades is on public safety infrastructure. It really seems like that's more of a general maintenance support. And then, oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead. I don't want to interrupt you.
Okay, yeah, the tree maintenance seems also like it's just general services support, or maybe streets, like repairing streets rather than protecting parks, youth, and senior services. Like we have a picture of what looks like the street trees on maybe Milpas here. And the roots and things are like sidewalk and pedestrian issues, and that really seems like a streets issue. I'm sorry, I just have OCD, so I notice things like this. And ADA transition plan, again, seems like more of a supporting general services rather than protecting parks and senior services. So those are just some comments I have. I think for sure we need to include that priority and make sure people understand that these projects are addressing that priority because it's a totally legitimate one. And again, I think the city should get credit for everything it's doing. All right, so those are my comments on that. And then Mr. Dewey, I have one question about gas tax. Gas prices are going way up. The tax is going to go up as a result of that. Does that mean we're getting more money because gas prices are going up?
Chair Gorin, I wish that was the case. I think that the governor has, he's making arrangements to have what he calls a gas tax holiday, and we don't know exactly what the implementation of that's going to look like. But the gas tax is an excise tax, and it's so it's just per gallon of gas or per gallon of diesel. And then there's another factor that that provides for inflation in there, and I think that that is what the governor has his eyes on, that he doesn't want to pass on that inflationary number, which is critical for us to stay, you know, ahead of our costs. But we're going to get what we get, and we're grateful for what we have. But no, unfortunately this year we probably will not get an inflation adjustment. But the intent is that every year we should get some sort of an inflation adjustment, but it isn't a direct function of the increase in gas cost.
Okay, thanks for that. And I guess I also want to comment on this, the 20% reduction in costs. I work with real estate developers and in property development, deal with contractors and owners, and you are the only contractor that I have encountered in the last 12 months that has experienced producing a reduction in costs. Everybody else has gone the opposite way by a factor of 2. So I congratulate you on that. Great job. And everybody, really good job. I always enjoy these meetings. My clients complain about the city a lot to me, and some of their complaints are legitimate, not necessarily with these departments, but one thing I'm always happy to tell people is what a great job we're doing with these funds and how well they're being managed. So I really appreciate everybody's work on these presentations and the excellent job you're doing managing these funds. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, in case there's any other follow-up comments or questions, I will go ahead and move it on to the next agenda item, which is expiring terms in the reapplication process. I think we went over that a little bit ahead of time, but my understanding, all of our terms are expiring. Is that correct? So,
yes, Chair Gorin, that is correct. Every member's term is expiring.
Okay, so if you intend to stay on the committee, make sure you reapply. And I have that date down as April 12th. Now, is that the first date to apply for reappointment, or is that the deadline to apply?
Chair Gorin, that is the date in which applications will start to be accepted. The application period is April 12th through May 9th.
Okay, thank you for that. So make note of those dates if you intend to reapply. And then our next item is to confirm our next meeting date of October 26th, 2022. So put that in your calendars, and I'm sure Ms. Nickerson's gonna send us the invites and everything, assuming we're all reappointed. And I don't think we have any other business here on this agenda. So does somebody need to move to adjourn the meeting, or do we just adjourn?
Chair Gorin, you can go ahead and adjourn.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting then. Thanks everybody for your time, and we will see you in October.
Thanks, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.